walking down the beach here in Panama. There is nobody around, not a single person. Staying at a very small bungalow, no electricity, deserted island. And when I'm on vacation, I like to unplug. I like to not think about work. I like to not do any work. But decided to take a little bit of a stroll on the beach and do something I don't normally do and record a little video. Because something was on my mind. I was lying in the hammock reading a book and something was on my mind. And it's the topic of growth. And it's a topic I've wrestled with for some time. Why do we grow our businesses? Why do we want to grow our businesses? Why do we keep growing our businesses? There's something in us that tells us that we should always be growing. And it's a topic that I've personally struggled with, and I've seen a lot of firms struggle with. And I know a lot of firms that say, I just want to intentionally stay small. I don't want to hire anyone. I want to have a small team. There's nothing wrong with that. I also think it might be something within us that makes us a little bit scared to grow, because we're kind of heading into uncharted territories. We don't know what to expect. There's risks associated with growth. We might already be busy. We don't want to make ourselves busier. I know that was a topic that I really struggled with when, I was running my firm, Zen Accounting. I had a team of around, 10, 12, 13 people. And, I was a bottleneck in many things in the firm. I don't think as bad as many of the other firms I see out there, but still not great. And I had a lot of stuff bubbling up to me. And when I sold the firm, I told myself, you know what? I'd read a book called Company of One. And this book, it really resonated with me at the time. When I sold my business, the guy was making, $500,000 a year, but was on his own, was doing the types of things he enjoyed in his business. He wrote a book on how to run a company of one, not having any team at all, and just doing things on your own and keeping things super simple. And that really resonated with me at the time. When I started Futures Firm, I said, you know what, I'm going to adopt that similar approach. I'm going to be a company of one. And, all I wanted to make when I started Future Firm was a couple $100,000 a year. And that's all I thought I needed to or wanted to sustain my lifestyle. And then I started growing the business. And then I had this urge to keep, there was more demand for what I was doing. And I had this urge to, keep growing the business. Why do we get that urge? I'm not sure, and that's what I was reflecting on when I was lying in the hammock before. And, how much growth is too much growth? What is enough? I've spoken about this. How much is enough? And, for me personally, I think what it comes down to, what I've identified, is that I don't like to just coast. I like the challenge of getting to the next level, discovering new things, learning. And that's what I found. I was growing my business. I said, well, I could just keep it at a couple $100,000 a year and just myself and sustain myself. I'd sold my business and I could just sustain myself. Well, heading through a little tiny river area here at the moment. So let me hop over. And I think, if looking into 2026, I'm definitely in growth mode at the moment. And that's something where I've maybe, the team is around 10. We were 15 earlier in the year. We shrunk back down. We simplified operations. We shrunk back down to 10, and now we're repositioned for the next step up. And, I learned something in 2025 that it's great to have a capable team, because when you're on your own or when you're super small, a lot of things are going to obviously fall on your shoulders. I had a bit of a health issue in 2025. I've talked about my concussion, and I was not able to do what I needed to do. And a lot of stuff needed to be pushed aside. And I saw the power of a great team. And having enough people on the team to keep the ball running, keep the ball rolling, I think is a great thing. So I think being able to grow to that position, there's a good argument for growth there. Because if you're just on your own, or if you have one or two other people, and perhaps there's a couple juniors on your team, if something happens to you, that business is going to stop. Your livelihood is going to stop. So that's one thing I saw. So I think that's one argument for growth. The other argument for growth is that there's something innate in us that doesn't like to stay put. We like to challenge ourselves. We like to learn new things. And I know for me personally, I'm just not that kind of personality that is able to stay put. So, we have like a $2.5 million business right now. It's not even about the money at this point. I have the money that I need to sustain myself and live the life that I want. It has nothing to do with the money. It has everything to do with me growing and discovering new things and learning new things, and just trying to see if I can get to the next level, if we can take things to the next level. So I think that's another argument for growth. That's another reason why I've decided to kind of level up in 2026 and try to take the business to the next level. I think that's what a lot of firm owners look for as well. So we have a couple reasons so far. We have one is not having the business so dependent on you in case something actually happens to you. And the other is personal growth, being challenged, learning new things. I think the third thing that really drives me, though, is the impact that we can make on others. And to be able to broaden that impact, I think there's a good argument for why we should want to grow our business. I started Future Firm because I was frustrated with the profession. I was frustrated that there was a lack of resources for modern firm owners that wanted to build a different business model, that wanted to build a business model that gave them freedom and the opportunity to grow the business. Those are the two things that our mission is to help unlock freedom and growth for firm owners around the world. That's what gets me up in the morning. How can we make these people's lives better? So I'm driven by the impact. Again, it has nothing to do with the money. Seeing the business go from $500,000 to $1 million to $2.5 million, that's just a milestone, but it has nothing to do with the money at the end of the day. It has everything to do with lessening the dependence on me, being able to challenge myself and grow personally, and being able to increase the impact that I have on others. As you grow, though, you will find yourself in a position where you will be bringing people onto your team, and those people will want to grow as well. So if we decide to stall the business at a certain point, those people are not going to want to stay put, and they're going to seek new positions. So that's another argument for if we decide to grow, then we do kind of reach a certain cycle where you might see people on your team that are, they want to be personally challenged, they want to discover new things, they want to learn new things, they're going to want to grow as well. So that's something you have to keep in mind if you decide to get into growth. So I always start with the end in mind. How much money you want to make to be happy, how many hours you want to work, where do you want to be spending your time, what do you want to be doing with your time, and design the business around that. And that's true. I always think that you should start with the end in mind. So I always think start with the end in mind. But I was lying on that hammock thinking, why have I leveled the business up so much in 2025? What am I positioning myself for? Am I doing the right thing here? Because, yes, we brought the team down from 15 to 10, but we also made several key hires. We also hired a very experienced head of operations. We brought on a new coach because we're going to be getting into new coaching We're going to be offering new coaching programs in Future Firm Accelerate. So I've added some complexity to the business. We've migrated software platforms so that it could be more scalable. We've simplified business operations so that we don't no longer have so many developers and designers on the team. So there's been some big moves that we made at Future Firm to get us in a position for growth for 2026. And that's really what kind of prompted this video, is me lying on that hammock thinking about, why am I doing this? Why am I positioning the business for growth? Do we need to grow? Do I want to grow? And I was pondering that and coming up with the reasons for why I'm putting myself in that position. And all those arguments I just laid out in this video, I think are good arguments for why you should want to grow your business. There's nothing wrong if you don't want to. There's definitely, there's pros and cons to each approach. But I do come across a lot of firm owners that say, you know what, I don't want to grow. I just want one person on a team. You know, I can't fathom the idea of having all these employees on the team, and you know, it's going to lead to this, you know, so X number of problems, and everything's going to bottleneck up with me, and I'm already so busy and I can't handle any more. I get that, because I've kind of been there when I was running my firm. I understand that. And that's just a symptom of not having the right systems in place. Because once you have the right systems in place, once you know how to find good people, once you know how to get them onto your team, once you know how to manage them better, then all of this stuff actually gets easier. And I've seen it with others who are, you know, 8-figure businesses, larger businesses. They say, actually, things get easier at a certain point. I think there's the difficult part. One of the most difficult parts is when you're at like a mid-6-figure firm, and there's some compromises you need to make. There's some risks you need to take if you are looking to grow. But once you could bust through that, and you can make it to the 7-figure level, you could add some structure to the team. You could have some key players that could take some things off your plate. You could start, if you have the right systems in place, you could eliminate yourself from the bottleneck position. There's no reason at a 7-figure firm why you can't eliminate yourself from being a bottleneck. And I think that sets you up nicely. So if you're scared about growth, I would reconsider. For some of the reasons that I mentioned earlier in this video, I think there's a lot of good arguments. And yeah, so this is probably the extent of what I'll be doing when I'm away in Panama. But I felt, you know, I don't record videos normally, and I felt, you know, why not try something different? Provide a few thoughts on camera here. I don't expect this to be an overly polished video. You know, the first thing I ever did at Future Firm was a blog post on why I'm starting a blog. If you go to futurefirm.co and you look at the very first thing that I put out there, it's a blog post titled "Why I'm Starting a Blog." And I didn't know exactly what Future Firm would be. I just knew that I wanted to help other firm owners and share my experiences and share my journey. And this is a bit reminiscent of that, this video. You know, I've toyed with the idea of starting a YouTube channel, and this just might be the introduction to that. We will see. I have not made that decision yet. But if there's some interest, you know, I do a lot of written content, but I might be putting out more video content if there's some interest there. So this might be an introduction to that. And like I said, I was lying on the hammock, hearing the waves, pondering a few things, thinking about growth, whether growth is good or whether and how much is enough, basically. And I think that's what time off unplugging can do, is it can help clarify a few points for me. So I feel very good about what we're doing at Future Firm and the team that we have and how we're positioned for 2026, and I feel good about wanting to grow the company, and I'm excited about it. So that's really what I wanted to share. And if you're struggling with that concept as well, perhaps it makes sense to just take a little bit of a step back. Think about what you might be scared of when it comes to growth, and think about whether that's justified or not. So anyway, that's it. I'll chat with you all later. Take care.